Well, you know what they say about making hay while the sun shines. Certainly doing that. So I'm up at the Chestnut Land apiary, and it's all massively overgrown. I've got to come in with my machine, but two things. First of all, the video I showed before where they're making the hay, that was where I've got a lot of my mating nukes, and that's my new mating yard, and it seems to be coming together pretty well. I've got colonies all around, and it's the most logical place, so I'm putting all my best stocks in that area, which I do anyway. Nice thing about this hive to show you is that this is honey. You see that in there? But what surprised me with this is I came to this apiary, disgusted, as I say, 3 weeks ago, and I harvested it, and we came and put the supers back. And about 2, 3, maybe 4 days after, I didn't write it down, after I came back, I came past to check it, and there was like 4 huge swarms come from this apiary. So I came back in that afternoon, I went through everything, I just literally threw the swarms in the boxes. There was still a bit of a flow running, and since then the weather's obviously been good, and anything that was going to give nectar has done. So this big swarm has given nectar. But the reason why I'm showing you this is because look, this is the supers, and that is brood. And what I didn't do is when I put this on, I didn't put a queen excluder on. So what I've done is I've just shaken the whole thing through, back into the box, and then smoked it down. Didn't see the queen, but I know she's there. But that's such a lovely surprise when I've come to this apiary, and everything is good. Looks like we've got a little bit of a swarm going on here. What on earth is there? Oh, here we go. I haven't been to that hive yet. But that's what happened, you see. I put the supers above the feeder to give them space, and obviously wasn't enough space. But at the end of the day, I can fix this quickly. It might be a mating flight. Let's see what they do. We do get this sometimes. It is what it is, you know. I'm sure it's going to settle here somewhere. So hopefully it will. Let's see what happens. That's the thing with bees. There's me saying this time of year, I'm not really looking to do queen cell inspections after the dearth we've had and everything, because everything else hasn't got queen cells. But you come to one apiary and you get one sweet spot, and the flow is just about to start, and the bees kind of know that the flow is going to start, and therefore they just kind of go if they need to. It's probably an older queen in that box anyway, but I don't know what's happening here. But anyway, looks like they're going to settle in the tree up there, miles away from here. Nothing I can do about it. Great. Who knows? That's a complete pain. That's honey lost, and that's the swarm lost, because if it settles up there, which it looks like it's going to, there's nothing I can do here. It'd be nice if she settled low down, then I could get her, but doesn't look like I'm going to be able to do that. Settling on that branch there. Bees, huh? Who'd have them? So she's decided to settle there. Not much I can really do about that. It's not a huge swarm, but it's still a swarm lost, and it's still potentially honey lost. So I've got to go back into the box now and sort that out. So let's get on with the rest of this now. We've got to go through that hive where that just came from and see how many queen cells there is, cut them out. So let's get on with that. All the fun of the fair. So first of all, I'm just going to finish off where I started here. I'm just going to put an extra super on this because I know the box is full of bees. The flow's about to start. There's already brood in there. When that brood hatches out, there'll be extra bees, and the other bees will be released to be foragers. And I can show you the chestnut here, what state it's at. Some of it is really going for it. It's about to start flowering. Others is not. You can see the tassels on the end of those flowers, on the end of the leaves. That's the flowers that aren't out yet. There's a lot around that's much further advanced. So you can see we're a way off really full bloom. I think there's a little bit of flow starting. Don't forget we've got a lot of bramble around, which is already giving. There's lots of bramble that have flowers at very different times. There's two main species of bramble, a 3-leaf and a 5-leaf. And I can't remember which one starts first, but I think it's the 3-leaf. I may be wrong, I can't remember. But one of them starts first before the other one. And we've got a lot of that one starting already, which is not early, it's just about where it should be. So there is some nectar out there, as well as beans if you've got nearby or other things. But that's about it. But for main things. But until the chestnut, well, when the chestnut gets going, anything that is a good colony will give you 2 supers if the conditions are right, easily. So we're all hoping that we're going to get a good flow. And 2 of these on for some reason. Feeders are finished with now, because obviously the nectar's starting. We don't want to be feeding while we're collecting honey. So let's go and deal with this swarm. So hopefully I'll be able to show you inside. We'll cut out some swarm cells, and we are going to leave one because I haven't got any virgins with me today. And I do believe that with all the stuff that's happened over the last few weeks with queens and stuff and late mating, I do believe that sometimes it's better just to leave the bees do their own thing, you know. If I'd have just got in here this morning a little bit earlier, we're now lunchtime, 12:30ish. They may well have built underneath it. It's my fault if they have. Let's just try and prise this off. See what they've done under here. Ow. Probably an older queen, but still plenty of bees in the box. It's going to go through this, cut out any queen cells. There's probably going to be a lot of them. There's the first one. Second, third, fourth. I'm obviously going to leave one, but I'm going to leave one. There is luckily a nice load of eggs in the frame there. So obviously she's only just stopped laying and she's gone after that. So this is really exactly what beekeeping is all about. Got a nice lot of brood here. So, and eggs and larvae and no queen cells here. This is what usually happens. We've got nice white larvae there in the middle. So that's really good to see. So there's plenty of energy left in this colony. This is potential energy that will hatch out and give this colony long life. Nice frames of brood. And there's a really nice queen cell there, which is nicely secluded in the side of the wall and protected. So I'm going to leave that one for now. If I find a better one, I will take that one out. But I'm going to leave just one for now because I have obviously got queens, but I obviously want this colony. Don't forget, as soon as this colony starts, as soon as you get a queen back in and you leave one cell and she's hatched out, there's no reason why they won't start foraging for food and for nectar. Just because it's queenless, it doesn't mean they won't forage. You've got to make provisions for that. And yes, in the majority of times they don't forage much, but they still will forage a little bit. So, loads of brood. I'm actually pleasantly relieved that this is actually fairly nice colony still. And we've got provisions in the colony and they're well set up. But I am going to just leave that one cell and come back and check it in a few days. probably a week, knowing me, when I come back and cut here. Look at that brood, look. Nice brood there. Take that queen cell out there. We don't need that one. Another one there. Just remove the sting out my knuckle. Ouch. More brood. Larvae, eggs. Very healthy colony, to be honest. Another queen cell. This was not a fancy pedigree. Another queen cell. Wish these bees had stopped being so stingy, because you'd have thought with being swarmy that they would have been a little bit less stingy. But, okay, last frame been drawn up. This is obviously an old queen because the colony isn't full by any means, but it has got good provision, so she stocked it well before she left. Let's clean that up a little bit. Put it back together, leaving the one cell. Almost certainly this was a older queen. Let's put that one cell back in and leave them get on with being bees. So that will hopefully hatch out within 2 to 3 days, and then we'll see what happens from there. Because the weather's going to be a bit thundery. We've actually had the weather's so weird this year. We've gone from warm to cold, back to warm. And now we've got a bit of thundery weather. We could get an absolute, I need a queen excluder there. We need an absolute deluge of rain, which I'm hoping we're going to get, because it will really freshen things up. So that is done. Hopefully we'll still get some honey from that. We shall see. The flow will probably last 3, maybe 4 weeks. And I'll be coming back to get this queen right. And at the end of the day, this colony could still be split at the end of the flow, or in end of July, and it could still potentially give me honey. So you've got to look at that. Oh, sorry, give me a swarm, a nuke. And that's what you have to think about. So what is my basic management strategy for this time of year? Well, we've arrived at a point now, a kind of crossroads, where it's all or nothing. The nukes that I am feeding now, they are going to be, or they are and they have been, put into hives. Now the reason why I do that is because obviously to keep them in nukes would be absolutely foolish, because they'd be so strong and then they'd obviously swarm, or the queen would stop laying. So you need to give them space, because you've done all that work, and the nukes will give you some honey, because they'll explode. And as soon as that queen started to lay, the clock was ticking. And that was the rush this spring, is to get those nukes made as quick as you can, so then the brood gets laid, and then 21 days later the brood starts hatching. And as far as I'm concerned, the moment that brood starts hatching, within 2 or 3 days, that's your key to transfer them over, because it's warm. It doesn't really matter how big the hive is, obviously within reason, but you can put them into a hive, and then that hive can give you honey. And what it does, it gives the bees plenty of room to draw comb, because all those nurse bees have very soon become wax builders, blah, blah, blah. You have a colony that has a rotation of bees starting. And as I was putting them in, we found a few that were trying to supersede. The classic problem with, because they were a little bit slow in getting some of them mated, and I had to use a couple of queens and whatever method I could to get the queens laying in there. In other words, they killed the first queen, or she didn't mate because of the bad weather. Sometimes the bees they think there's something wrong with the queen because there's no nurse bees on the scene. So you have to go and inspect your nukes and cut out the odd two or three queen cells that sometimes they do make. But that's all done now. We're moving on now. We've moved those nukes into main hives, and what that will do, give them room, but it also means I can put honey super on them. So if they're strong, they'll immediately, imagine if you've got 4 or 5 frames of brood hatching out at the same time, within 2 weeks That brood will be all laid up again, but the brood that hatched out will be becoming worker bees. They'll be becoming nurse bees at first, and they'll be also then becoming forager bees. And the older bees that were accompanying that nuke, well, okay, a lot will start to die off because they're going to be exhausted, but the cycle is complete, and you've got that turnover of bees, and you've got a good chance of honey. And because you've given them room at the right time, you keep that momentum of the queen going. And because they've got space, it creates a box of bees. And then you can take a split from that at the end of the summer, and you filled another hive. So and then when you've taken that split, you can give them pollen sub if there's a dearth on, and you can give them feed to keep them going and growing. But what I'm trying to explain is there's a cut-off point. And I've got other nukes that are only on 2 and 3 frames because they're small, because they took time to get going, or I said they were late getting a queen laying. But the other ones I've shaken out, but the ones who've got brood are going to come along. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep them in those nukes, and when they get strong in the flow, I'll split them. I won't need to feed them at all. I'll just split them. I'll take 3 frames of bees out and brood and some feed, or just whatever 3 frames I think is necessary, and give them a queen. And then that colony that's left will have room to expand again. You see, what I'm doing is I'm just using the resources I've got to what I think is the best effect. Nothing is in stone with beekeeping. You've got to just kind of work to what you think is what's going to work for you. And by putting bees into hives, for me, it does a couple of things. It gets rid of a lot of hives that I've been trying to fill for ages, so they're used, great. And potentially next year they'll be great. It gives me the chance I can take a split from them. But also anything that was smaller, I can take a split from that. It's just on a smaller scale. So it uses up my resources, but I need to fill these hives. I need to get my numbers back up and finally get back up to somewhere where I should be over the 200 mark. I'm virtually there now. I've got plenty of over 200 colonies, obviously, but some are in nukes, some are in mini nukes, blah, blah, blah. I have been making more mini nukes. I'm up to about nearly 40 now, which is great. I've been dividing those. I showed you last week those mini nukes that were so strong, and they were just a joy to divide. Absolute joy, because they were all loads of bees. The weather was nice. They've got a little bit of nectar from the bramble and the beans up the road at home, and it's just fantastic. So making hay while the sun shines is what we're doing. We can only really, at this point, all we're doing is, okay, we get the occasional swarm, but that's just beekeeping. That is just the way it is. But to waste a lot of time opening every hive this week when you should be transferring and checking everything else is good is not the best strategy for me. It's a job to get around everything anyway, but just to make sure the queen right hives are good, and they virtually all are now, just to make sure they've got space, because within a week, they're going to be filling 2 supers, and you're going to come back in a week and then put another super on. I don't want to put one on straight away, but it's pretty likely that we'll get 2 to 3 supers if the flow's good and the weather's right from each colony that's strong now. So you want to keep that space. You've got to get in there straight away. Seeing that, though, was a real pain for me, and it really hurt, because I know I should have put that put those supers above the queen, so not above a feeder. So but at the end of the day, I was here when it swarmed. It is what it is, It's just, you just have to take it on the chin and just move on, because if you didn't, you would. The main thing is I've come to this apiary, as I've said, and everything is actually pretty good. It's better to have bees swarming than dead in the box. Put it that way, to be honest. You got to look at it like that. But lots of apiaries still to do. I've still got a couple of queens to release at an apiary up the road, but they'll be fine. We did get a lot of queens that were laid late, that started laying late. So as the flow really hasn't kicked off yet, it's just given us a little bit of time. It's given us an extra week to just get everything back where it should be. The work that I should have done last week, I'm now catching up on this week, and it's all good news. So, on that note, I wish you farewell, and I'll catch you again soon. Bye for now.